situation. Thank you.
No problem. I think for something like universal jurisdiction, by its nature, it's quite a political issue. I think we've taken a number of cases and have had a number of warrants issued over the last 7 years or so. And for us, the most difficult thing has always been the first stage, which is getting a warrant issued and then actually getting the suspect arrested, which we haven't managed to do yet. And the main reason for that is political interference. For example, in the UK in 2005, there was a warrant issued for Daragh while he was in the air flying into Heathrow, and after a leak from we think from the Crown Prosecution Service, he was notified and landed at Heathrow but wouldn't board, and there was a bit of an armed standoff and he left. I think something like that is the major scope for political interference. Once it gets into a court, the courts will take over and we have to trust them. In terms of changes to the law, it's always talked about, and politicians will always go off about it, as David Miliband and Gordon Brown and the Tories in the UK have. Actually doing it, I think, is a very difficult thing. There were some changes made in Belgium and most recently in Spain, but what those changes meant was they restricted universal jurisdiction to a case where the suspect is actually on the territory, and that's in accordance with most it's a standard reading of universal jurisdiction. For us, that would be grand once the person gets there. To actually go further in that and revoke universal jurisdiction will be a very, very difficult thing domestically, because of each country's obligations, international obligations. They would in effect have to violate the Geneva Conventions, or the Convention Against Torture, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Something like that, I think, would be very difficult. For example, out in 2005, after Almog, there was a lot of talk in the UK by Jack Straw, I think it was at the time, of changing the law, but nothing happened. I think it's quite a difficult thing to change the law, and to oppose it, I think one of the things we've tried to do is to emphasize how much of a universal issue it is, that although most of the attention is focused on Israel and Palestine, universal jurisdiction is used all over the world. And it's been used against people from Afghanistan, from the States, from China, from Somalia, the Congo, the DRC. It's a universal phenomenon, and I think that's the way to deal with it. It's something we've constantly tried to push, that it's not an Israel-Palestine issue, it is a universal issue. I hope that answers your question somewhat. But
yeah, so if I can just clarify this then. So for the case with Zippy Livni, we would have to wait for her to arrive in the UK on unofficial business, say on a shopping trip.
It doesn't matter whether it's official or unofficial. There's no since Nuremberg really, or most recently since Pinochet, or the International Criminal Courts for Yugoslavia and Rwanda, there's no immunity for international crimes. A suspect will have personal immunity if they are a prime minister, a sitting prime minister, or a foreign minister, or maybe even a defence minister or a minister of trade, as long as they are in office. But that immunity evaporates as soon as they leave office. So for someone like Zippy Livni, who is no longer in the cabinet, it wouldn't matter whether she was on official business or not, or for anyone else.
So what grounds, I don't understand what grounds the British government has got then in saying that they don't have jurisdiction over this, if under international law, war crimes is universal. So whoever you are, wherever you are, you can be arrested on a war crime. So what case has the British government got for not going forward with the arrest warrant should she arrive?
Well, who knows? I don't know that they won't. I would definitely hope that they would. I can't talk about some aspects of it, but I've no reason to believe that they wouldn't execute a warrant if she did actually arrive in the country. The issue they're talking about in the UK, and this might be boringly legal for some people, is on the implementation. It's on the issuance, the procedure for the issuance of an arrest warrant. And at the moment in the UK, individuals can petition a court. It's the Magistrates' Court in Westminster, which is one of the most senior courts, and ask for a warrant to be issued. And if the judge believes that there's prima facie evidence, or on the surface evidence, of an international crime having been committed, he or she can then issue a warrant. And from that stage then it will go to the Attorney General's office, and it's the Crown who will initiate the proceedings. But what the Israelis want to remove is that the ability of a member of the public or an individual to bring a case and to get an arrest warrant issued. But I think one of the big misconceptions about that is people believe that anyone can bring a case to the court. You know, there's thousands of cases each year where applications are sought for a warrant, and very, very few of them are actually issued. The standard of evidence is very, very high. So I think, for me anyway, it has to have trust in the judicial system. If a judge sees enough evidence and believes that there's a case to answer, then there's no reason an arrest warrant shouldn't be issued. But the issue focuses on that misconception that the system can somehow be abused. At the end of the day, the judge still has to make a decision based on the evidence that he's presented with.
We have time for one or two more questions. We're close to the normal closing time. What I'd like to do is invite question and comment, and then close the meeting formally, and you're welcome to stay after to any hour. We can stay open 24 hours if you want to stay here and discuss anything. But I would like to put in one question from the side here that is in response to the question of Palestine as a universal issue. How do you see the Palestine issue impacting on world relations in terms of what else is going on in the Middle East and such?
I think it's not only the Middle East but the world. I think one of the most important consequences is that people lose, and it happens in Palestine, I'm sure in Israel and elsewhere, is that people lose faith in international law, in international justice, in the UN. And that is a very dangerous thing. Without that, it's a set of guidelines, and maybe this is the lawyer in me coming out, but the rule of law is quite an essential thing. It's a very important thing. It's one of the few things that people have to hold on to. And if the faith in the system is eroded, if the credibility of someone like the UN is eroded over their involvement in the quartet, or if international law and international justice is just being seen as Western justice, where, for example, the International Criminal Court only focuses on African states and not on the US for crimes, say, torture committed in Guantanamo, then it just erodes the whole principle, and that itself is a very dangerous thing.
Well, you mentioned Nuremberg a while ago, and the recent judgments in the recent documents in the U.S. about the Bush administration and torture, etc., appear to have changed the American attitude toward whatever standard was set at Nuremberg. So if how does that relate?
Well, I think it's all part of the same thing. Torture is, it's a Jus Cogens norm of international law. It means that it's universally prohibited. It doesn't matter if you sign a treaty or not. I suppose that's about the simplest way to put it. It's universally prohibited, and it's an obligation on a state to investigate and to prosecute if there's sufficient grounds after an investigation. And it's that principle that international law can be violated by the powerful and by the biggest states or their friends. I think that's the single thing that has the biggest impact. People will lose faith in the system, and we don't have another answer to that system at the moment. And the last 60 years, since Nuremberg, or since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 48 or the Geneva Conventions in 49, have seen a huge progress. Now human rights is the standard language that everyone uses, whether they believe in it or not, I think. But it's the standard language, and it's become a very important weapon. Any resistance, non-violent resistance, will speak of human rights. Politicians are forced to speak of it. If the faith in that system is eroded, I think it would be a big loss.
Okay. Next question, last question.
Mr. Chairman, you have...
Please identify yourself.
My name is David Turner. I'm a freelance writer. You have totally disrupted the idea of having any questions. It's totally between you and the person in the chair. And nobody other than two of us have had a chance to answer questions. This is disgusting.
Okay. Another question?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stay for a drink, I think, so if anyone does have any questions, feel free.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, my name is Emmanuel Waché, and I came here like a visitor. I am just making business in Thailand. And I just wanted to ask you, I was like, it looked like you know very well the area, and I don't know as well as you. I was very surprised talking with some Lebanese people. And one of them, he was a phalangist. And they tell me, we talk about the Palestinian problem and all this, and he just tell me like this: these people, they're not human beings, they're just dogs. We should kill the women when they are pregnant. Like this, we will have less of this shit. This was Arab words. So I would like you to tell me, because I don't understand about this, is why between Arabs and in many Arab countries, I have some Palestinian friends, they are afraid to say they are Palestinian in many Arab countries. And I would like to know why there is such a hate of the Palestinian people in Arab countries. First question. And second question, how many do you know about the number? Sorry, it's quite a horrible number, but do you know how many Palestinians since 1940 something the Arab country killed, and how many Israel killed? I would like to know. Sorry for the details. Thank you very much.
No problem. I have no idea how many people have been killed by anyone since 48. I think I can find the figure since maybe the start of the Second Intifada that Israel has killed or that have been killed by internal Palestinian problems. But beyond that, I don't think the documentation reliably goes back that far. In terms of Arab attitudes towards Palestinians, I think that's an incredibly complex question, especially in Lebanon, and the relationship between, well, the very, very complex history of Lebanon, and the relationship between the Phalangists and Israel, between the Maronites and the Palestinians. It's something I don't feel I'm qualified to talk about at all. I think if I want to bring it back to Israel and Palestine, I think that dehumanization is a massive problem, and I think that is made possible by separation. And I think that that's maybe one of the biggest problems of the closure on the Gaza Strip, is that there's no interaction between Palestinians and Israelis, and that breeds extremism, and it allows you to dehumanize what is essentially the enemy. And I think that's a major obstacle to any progress, and to any negotiation, and to any peace. I'm sorry I don't have the answers to your questions, but
one more question.
Well, I wanted to ask two.
Please
One
identify
more-
one and a
yourself.
half. If
One
you
more
want.
question or two.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, Sam Wright, Club